I would like to actuate my fellow colleagues to totally ban workplace violence. Workplace violence should be opposed because violence leads to a number of damages and other negative consequences to an organization. Work violence reflects a negative image to both fellow staffs, management, and customers. Therefore, it should totally not be allowed. How many of you think that work violence can solve to address a rising issue? Will an individual feel good if injured in a workplace violence? Answering these two questions will make us understand workplace violence well. According to Sofield and Salmon, workplace violence can be defined as any kind of physical assault, verbal abuse, or threatening behavior within the work environment setting. It involves any form of an act which threatens customers' or workers' safety, affects an individual life, well-being, or health, and resulting in property damage. Workplace violence occurs in many ways. These ways include fights that may arise due to misunderstanding, stalking, threats within the staff's or work management team, and the staff, harassment from supervisors and other staff. As Barling and others supports shooting, sexual assault, intimidation, and shouting or swearing that is anger generated are also workplace violent acts. There exist 4 workplace violence categories, namely strangers, where non-company staff bring outside issues to the company and causes violence. Co-workers, which occur mostly within fails to understand each other and disagree with each other or raising their personal feelings. Customer workplace violence, where a customer, instead of following the right way of solving conflicts, decides to face the service provider and disrupts the duties of the workers. And lastly, personal relationships, which are experienced by the organizational workers. Each individual is affected by workplace violence. Therefore, instead of being disturbed alone, it is good to share your problems or concerns with your fellow workers or even your supervisor. Workplace violence within the workplace environment leads to firing of the individual worker, termination of the worker's contract, or even prosecution of the worker. The workplace violence rules should be strictly enforced. In order to avoid job loss effects due to workplace violence, prevention and measures should be established. Of course, there is no workplace violence prevention national standard but the general responsibility clause will be used to manage the prevention. The following strategies to ensure workplace violence is prevented should be set. One of the strategies is stabilizing security measures. Measures to ensure strangers are not allowed to disrupt normal operations should be in place. Gillespie and others support that customers and clients should be requested to follow set procedures for solving customer claims. Other strategies are training workers well on both work relations and how to handle issues. Providing programs which advocate employee assistance in workplace where employees shall disrupt issues with the management, fellow co-workers, or even supervisors. Visitor procedures should be imposed where a visitor's detail are recorded and where the workers to be visiting contacted on the awareness of the visitor. And lastly, pre-employment screenings where all employee relations are keenly studied to ensure a good relationship within the organization is maintained. Also, policies and procedures should be set to ensure workplace violence is controlled totally. For instance, if a worker refused to cooperate with the set procedure and policies, the individual should not be allowed to enter into the operation premises. Some items, for instance, weapons, ammunition, and firearms should be banned from being carried into the workplace. Trained personnel for security should be used to offer security. Alarms signals should be working. Off-limit areas should have signs to indicate so. Badges to workers for easy identification. Work should be effectively arranged, adequately lighted, and marks of an escape route. Peak ESSA and others supports that aggressive behaviors should be identified and supervisors alerted. Avoid using drugs and alcohol at workplace, discrimination actions that can be unfair. Personal conflicts, teamwork should be used, respect within workers, personal discipline, and making workplace secure, and zero tolerance for harassment behaviors. Emotional disturbance and forces of progress work measures. Did you stop it?